I'm live. Hey, it's a miracle. Look at that. Can you guys hear me? Do I have any viewers? Well, maybe. Let's go to a different page, shall we? Google. Let's look up problem, reaction, solution. Problem, reaction, solution. Well, by the way, before I go too far, welcome to the Heart-Centered Masterclass. I'm your host, Brian Curtis. I was talking to my brother yesterday for a while. He travels, he drives truck, he's writing a book, and we always have these discussions about government, and we were talking about problem, reaction, solution. It's just common, they create the problem, they create the reaction in the social dynamic, and then they give you the solution. Let's look at let's look at this, what it is. Model consists of three distinct interrelevant phases. Those in power covertly create, engineer, or exploit a specific issue, often inducing fear, anxiety, or distress in the public. Media and authorities amplify the issue, bringing it to the forefront of the public attention. This causes public outcry, creating a demand for something to be done. The reaction. Solution. The authorities introduce a prearranged solution that was likely claimed unacceptable or unnecessary before the problem was manufactured. This solution usually involves increasing centralized power, restricting freedoms, or changing laws. Key aspects of the theory. So they're calling it a theory. Origin. The concept is heavily associated with conspiracy theorist David Icke, who has written about it since the 1990s. Of course, this is the AI overview. Purpose. It is used to manipulate public opinion and accepting policies that would otherwise be rejected, such as increased surveillance, reduced civil libraries, or new conflicts. So AI is calling it a theory because, here's the bottom line, is that, how do you like my picture here of my son? Riding his thing with his puppy dog. Anyway, social engineers, they've been social engineering for a long time, and monarchs understood for a long time, and this is recorded historically, that's not hard to figure out, that if the population that you're in charge, or that you're taking the energy from, isn't in conflict, then eventually they'll overthrow you, and then it goes through a cycle. There's a history of governments overthrowing, because if the people aren't happy, they're going to get rid of whatever control structure is in place because they're not happy. Now, if they're not happy, you have to give them an object that is the reason behind why they're not happy, and so you have to externalize it. And if you can't externalize it and give them something to not be happy about, then they're going to blame their unhappiness on you because you're the control structure that's controlling that thing. And the best way to do that, or you don't have to make people feel unsafe from something outside themselves, give them something to fight or in conflict with. So European countries have been at war with each other for years, and then the people in power would just stay in power because they would, not give enough to eat, and then blame it on the other guys, and then fight each other. This is normal in history. It's group psychology. My brother brought up a really interesting point yesterday. He's like, we're all children just playing games. And if you don't, the thing is if you don't want to play the game that somebody's playing, then the only way to not get pulled into it is to not play the game. Attention goes, energy goes where attention flows. So if you have your attention on some somebody's game, then you're really playing that game. He was talking about the movie War Games with Matthew Broderick. Excellent movie. And it has a really good message, because the only way to win a war is to not play the game. And that's the message of that movie. The only way to win a war of conflict is to not play the game. Don't play the game they're playing. If you play their game, then neither side wins. It's just conflict over and over and over, and they just kill each other over and over. So, what game is really being played? It's externally basing everything. The game that's being played is to use their currency, or using currency at all. Now, why does currency exist in the first place? Because one person doesn't want to do something, so you have to create something to put in your pocket so that you get to decide what you want to do instead of the community. Because without money, you have to create community involvement. You have to live like a family. Inside family units, if your mom cooks all the food, does all the cleaning, all the dirty dishes, and then your dad sits around and picks his nose and watches TV, and the kids don't do anything, then you're going to have a fairly unhappy unit, because you're not distributing the load across the family. Nobody's taking responsibility for their roles, so that each individual has more time to spend together. When one person is forced to do everything for the others, then it wears on that person, and then you don't, the unit breaks down, because now you're no longer balancing the load and then balancing the creative time and the things that you do together. Where in society is the things that we need balanced? It isn't. The 40-hour work week is a representation of an unbalanced load. I looked this up, and let's look this up in ChatGPT. Just to ask. Let's just ask the question. Look here, how many people are watching? Nobody's watching. I'm not going to pay for your stupid plan. Okay. What is a good estimate of the global percentage workforce that supplies our basic needs? This would be food, shelter, water, utilities, emergency services, and food, shelter, water, utilities, emergency services. What else is there? Transportation. Because, I mean, that's part of, you have to be able to move around. You need food, shelter, water, utilities, garbage, electrical, plumbing, all those things. In other words, a percentage of work that actually applies to our quality of living. This is a really good question, because how actually keeps humans alive versus how much meta activity layered on top of that. So everything on top of that would be like entertainment, right? Roughly 30% of the global workforce directly supplies humanity's basic needs and quality of life foundations. If you stretch the definition to include maintenance, logistics, and frontline coordination, you can push it towards 35%. If you keep it strict, it drops closer to 20%. Either way, most human labor is not required for survival or baseline well-being. Let's break it down. Approximate global shares. Food production distribution, 8 to 10%. Shelter, 5 to 7%. That's the construction trades, building materials, structural engineering, maintenance of housing. Water sanitation, 2 to 3%. Healthcare and emergency services. Doctors, nurses, EMTs, 4 to 6%. Transportation, essential movement only. Freight, food, materials, vehicle maintenance, or essential systems. So 22 to 31%. That means if you distributed that across the entire workforce, let's get a number. Can we average the approximate weekly contribution globally if we distributed the load evenly across the work age population? And now it's got to think. It's really hard to imagine because right now, all those structures, for one thing, they have centralized structures around it that control what those things are. So if you're decentralizing everything and localizing everything, for one thing, it grows much more efficient because you're directly applying for the localized needs of the community that you're in. So if everybody's sharing that load, think about how many people in your community, wherever you're at, localized, are actually contributing to utilities, water, all these basic functions. It's probably 20 or 30%, like ChatGPT is saying. If you redistribute that, and some of them, when it comes to hospitals, sometimes the hours are just different because, okay, so it's giving us an answer. If 20% of the basic needs, 5.7 hours a week per person, if 20%, 6.8 hours a week, 30%, 35%, 10 hours a week. Practical takeaway. If you keep the lights on so that it work evenly across the globe, you're working at roughly 7 hours per week per person with a plausible range of, that's not saying it's easy, skills, seasonal location, coordination of the real constraints, but it's a clean estimate of the labor volume. So in other words, if you redistribute to make sure that everybody has to contribute to the needs of the community, then we wouldn't be working hardly at all. 10 hours a week, all I had to do is do what I asked, all you have to do is organize it. The rest of the time is spent on entertainment and innovation. Then that number would creep much smaller as well, because now you're contributing the entire global population towards innovation and entertainment. It would literally be heaven on earth. We're living in a prison and killing our heart because we're externally basing our heart instead of understanding that the only thing that we really need to worry about is the relationship between you and I. Welcome to the Heart-Centered Masterclass. So, yeah, it's not, if you do the math and you figure it out and you say, okay, well, some people there's so many different jobs out there when it comes to supporting the community. Almost I would say 99% of people after they're born can contribute in some way to some aspect of one of those jobs. Even if you had to move information back and forth between, things, there isn't anything. For me personally, I would be I would love if I only had to work 10 hours a week and then I had the rest of the time of the week to do whatever I wanted, to and whatever entertainment, I'll take out the garbage for 10 hours a week. I don't care. Not only that, but innovation is gonna shrink that number of because now it's in everybody's best interest to create something that is self-sustainable for everyone else. Yeah. The only reason a problem reaction solution keeps continuing is because of fear of safety. But the only thing that really ever keeps you safe is understanding that we are all children and that we don't judge one another and that we don't buy into religious systems. All it is a religious system. Any kind of centralized government is a religious system. When you look at the body and how it's built, look at how your body's built. It's a decentralized, organizing, creative consciousness. It creates itself to organize itself in a way that can move energy and information non-localized in a more expansive way. That's all it is. The only reason that judgment of the mind happens is because we don't understand what we are. I mean, if you're just a structure within a field that's creating itself, how can you judge that? If it doesn't understand that that's what it is, if it wants to say, my name is so-and-so, or they're bad because they're doing this and this and this because they believe in that whatever belief system on how to control or not control, it's all gobbledygook. It's all animal dumb brain trying to feed on its environment to stay alive instead of just recognizing who and what we are and then saying, oh, wow, we just need to connect like that. And then we'll just blast off and do whatever, probably, mobility. We'll be able to travel wherever we want, do whatever we want. Because innovation gets to the place where the hourly requirement for daily activities to support our way of life goes down incrementally small. I bring this up because people that live in a prison don't know how to work together. Otherwise, they'd get out of the prison. And the only reason they don't know how to work together is because of the blocks, the prisons in their mind. Love you guys. Levels of consciousness and levels of understanding create resonance with each other. And they create little groups that fight one another until they can see the bigger picture and understand that that's all it is. It's just belief systems. Now, if you believe something that's not real, then why are you following it? All you have to do is understand the system that you're living in and then replicate according to the rules of the system that you're living in, which is balance. It's all about balance. If you don't balance the energy, then it's going to want to move in one direction or the other. If you balance it, then you can stay at the center point and be at the creative potential and the receptive potential at the exact same time. But you have to balance that with each other. Because if I'm the one creating all the time and nobody else is, and I don't know how to, the only reason that's happening is because we're externally basing ourselves and understanding who we are. Because otherwise, it's natural to want to live like a kid again and play the right game with the people that you love and teach them how to play it too. And that's the purpose of this channel. So, love you guys. Have a great day. And I encourage you in your business relations and stuff, focus on how to create a relationship, how to explain how to create balance in a relationship with the people that you're working with. Because it all starts with us. And so my intent has always been to educate and help people understand who and what we are. We are the creators and the receivers of everything that action creates. But we're not the creation itself. We're just a temporary manifestation of our own understanding of who we are. Love you guys. Have a great day.